How much money do people really have, and what net worth puts you in the top 10% of all Americans? These are just some of the jaw-dropping money statistics we're going to go over in today's video. I've compiled 10 of the most shocking money stats, and let's get started with number 10. And this stat comes from the world of automobiles. And the stat is that 26.6% of trade-ins for new cars have negative equity on them. And the average amount of negative equity as of 2025 is negative 6,654. What that means is that when someone goes to trade in their car, they actually still owe more money on the car than it's actually worth. The term for this is called being underwater on your loan. And listen to this. 32.6% of underwater trade-ins had between $5,000 and $10,000 of negative equity, which means that if you were to go and trade in, let's say a 2020 Kia Niro, for example, and it's worth $10,000 in trade-in value, but you still owed $5,000 on the loan, your net trade-in equity is only going to be $5,000. This is a problem that has been worsening due to longer-term car loans, for example, 84 months or perhaps 96 months, and vehicles that were bought during the pandemic when prices were inflated a lot due to supply chain shortages. If you combine these factors with car depreciation, it creates a perfect storm for negative equity to form. So how do we avoid situations like this? So here are my 3 takeaways. Number 1, I think you should buy a used car. Depreciation is at its highest for new cars. So if you're willing to buy a 3 years, 4 years, or maybe even a 5-year used car, you can acquire the car when most of the depreciation has been chipped away already. The second takeaway, don't worry about what other people are thinking of you and what you drive. Because a car at the end of the day is just to take you from point A to point B. Of course, you might want some luxury features or safety features. I completely get that. But if you are buying a car just to impress other people, I would stay away from that. And the third takeaway is to try the 24-10 rule for buying a car. You could even expand this to the 25-10 rule. That famous rule says that when you buy a car, you should at least put 20% down on the car. Try to pay off the car within 4 or 5 years. And all your payments for your car on a monthly basis should not exceed 10% of your gross monthly income. When it comes to car payments, we want to be reasonable with what we're spending on a percentage basis of our monthly income. And what we really just want to avoid is having a car payment that takes up like 25 or 30% of our income. I know that sounds a little ridiculous, but trust me, I've actually seen it happen. People have 1,000 car payments on the reg and they just see that as a normal way of life. Car payments are definitely one way to kill your wealth. I've made so many videos on this channel about that fact that I will link down below and later on. Shocking money stat number 9 today is all about buy now, pay later debt. So the average user of buy now, pay later carries a loan balance of $760 according to Morgan Stanley. The firm Affirm, I know that's a mouthful, has even come out and said that the average outstanding balance of BNPL was $736 for their company's users. For those of you that don't know, buy now, pay later is that when you buy something online or perhaps in person, it'll give you the option of buying something in installments instead of paying for it all at once. The problem, though, is that it kind of makes overspending really easy since you don't feel the immediate pain of paying for that item in that moment. While some people think that they won't make a late payment, the statistics show otherwise. Over 24% of BNPL users have made a late payment in 2025, and nearly 40% of Americans who use BNPL actually end up regretting it. Now, if you think you're not susceptible to buy now, pay later because perhaps you make over $100,000 and you can afford things, well, think again. Morgan Stanley found that high-income households are the main adopters of buy now, pay later, with 38% of those earning between $100,000 to $150,000 per year actually using buy now, pay later. So my takeaways are the following. Number 1, if you can't afford something, don't buy it. There's a famous phrase that says if you can't afford it twice, don't buy it. And I would err on the side of that. Number 2, BNPL programs might seem harmless because of the interest-free loans, but it is a gateway habit to more poor financial decisions. And number 3, debt is still debt at the end of the day. Even if it is interest-free for a period of time, you're still going to owe money to somebody else. All right, if you thought that last money stat was crazy, wait until you hear this. There is over $18 trillion sitting in deposits at all commercial banks in the United States as of right now. According to a CNBC article, 82% of Americans don't keep their cash in a high-yield savings account, and 57% just keep it in a traditional savings account, earning little interest, which means that people are losing money every single year without even realizing it. For example, $5,000 in a regular savings account at the national average savings rate of 0.4% is only $20 in interest after 1 year. But if you were able to save it in a high-yield account that offered 350% APY, that would be an extra $175 for no extra work. That's enough for a brand new pair of headphones that the extra money could buy. So my takeaways for you here is that you should at least at the minimum be opening up a high-yield account for your real-life savings goals, and you can do so at many institutions such as Chime, who's partnering with me for this portion of the video. The second takeaway is that if you have an emergency fund, you should be putting that in a high-yield savings as well so that you're at least earning interest on that. And the third takeaway is that you can even start really small. So starting small and doing something about your savings is much more important than not doing anything at all. So I would definitely just encourage you to get a high yield account just so that you're getting the most out of your money. Chime offers a 3.50% APY, which is 8 times the national average, and there are no monthly fees or no minimum balances. The best part is that it only takes a few minutes to sign up and you can access your money at any time. And as of today, you can earn up to a $350 bonus just by opening a new checking account and completing qualifying activities. I will link to their landing page down below just so that you can check them out. I appreciate them sponsoring this portion of the video. At the very minimum, just make sure you're getting your money working for you because that's what's important to building wealth at the end of the day. Now, this next stat is always a pain in my side. It always baffles me, but it's that 60% of Americans cannot afford a $1,000 emergency expense according to bank rates. And we are essentially a paycheck-to-paycheck nation. In order to cover an emergency, the same survey reports that 25% of people would turn to a credit card in order to pay off this $1,000 emergency expense. Now, if you look at this table, you can see that the younger generation of Gen Z, 34% of them have no emergency savings. And for the first 3 buckets of generations, Gen Z, Millennials, and Gen Xers, close to 1/3 of them have some emergency savings, but not enough to cover 3 months of expenses. So my takeaways for this money stat is that number 1, if you are young or you're just starting your financial journey, any amount of money that you can save should go first towards building your foundation of emergency savings. Number 2, having this emergency fund will give you peace of mind. You're just going to sleep better at night. And number 3, don't touch this money unless an actual emergency comes up. I see way too many people, they dip into their emergency fund because perhaps it's commingled with their main checking account. So what you want to do is ideally separate the emergency fund by a different account altogether. The 6 money stat today are actually the median account balances of every age group in the United States. And according to Bankrate, the median bank account balance in the United States is around $8,000. And you can see it broken down by age right here. The older that you get in general, the more savings that you will have. But as we know, the amount that you have in your bank shouldn't just be dependent on your age. This next table on the screen shows you just how much your income plays a role into how much money you will have in your bank account. You might call me Captain Obvious here, but I'm just trying to illustrate the fact that sometimes you might see a stat like the median bank account balance in the United States is $8,000. And all of a sudden you might think to yourself, well, I have $12,000 in my bank account. I'm probably doing pretty good. And yes, while you might be above the median in America, perhaps if you're earning $153,000 or more, the median bank balance there is $33,800. So that just might give you some perspective. My takeaways for this money stat are pretty straightforward. Number 1, if you do have $50,000 to $100,000 in your bank account, please make sure you are at least earning some sort of yield for that. Number 2, pay attention to statistics with a grain of salt because the right amount of cash for you might differ from the right amount of cash for somebody else depending on your spending habits. And number 3, income is the primary driver of being able to save more money. So try to invest in your skills and getting ahead at work in order to become more financially comfortable, especially if you're still in those earlier income brackets. All right, shifting gears a bit to the investing world. This next stat always boggles my mind, and that is number 5. That 28% of people who roll over their money into an IRA, they leave it in cash. This is more common than people think. People think that when they contribute their money into their Roth IRA, or when they roll over their money from a 401k to an IRA, that the cash just automatically gets invested. The former situation is one that really makes you feel dumb if you ever commit it, which is that, you put your money into this Roth IRA or this IRA, and then you realize, oh my God, I've been putting my money into an IRA for the last 3 to 5 years, and it just hasn't been invested into anything. You must remember that you have to invest that money into something, whether it's an index fund, a bond, a stock, etc. The second situation where you roll over your money from a 401k to an IRA, this is the situation that can actually kind of catch you a little bit off guard and can be quite confusing. According to Vanguard, 68% of people don't realize how their assets are even invested. And what happens is that when you roll over a 401k to an IRA, you might be invested in an index fund, but when that gets rolled over, it gets converted into cash within that IRA. According to this CNBC article, the financial institution that receives the money doesn't automatically invest the savings in an S&P 500 fund. The account owner must make an active decision to move the money out of cash. The takeaways are pretty simple here. Number 1, check what your IRA is invested in today. Make sure you're not making this mistake of keeping it in cash. Number 2, if you are rolling over funds from a 401k to an IRA, anytime that happens, you just want to double check that you're still invested in whatever you were invested in originally. And lastly, the third is a really simple takeaway. Don't make any assumptions when it comes to personal finance, brokerages, and investing. Always make sure you double check. Jaw-dropping money stat number 4 today is also investing related, but it's that the market doubles every 10 years. Now, depending on the rate of return of the markets, this can be longer or shorter, but in general, 10 years is a really good rule of thumb. That's because the market will experience cycles of bull and bear markets. And on any given year, when we risk our money in stocks, we're going to be subject to some volatility. According to Financial Samurai, as you can see here, 38% of the years from 1930, the S&P 500 has fallen 10 to 20% intra-ER. And 16% of the years, the S&P 500 has fallen in excess of 20% intra-ER. That means that market corrections and significant downturns are a normal part of investing in stocks. And you must accept this volatility if you want to be a successful investor. If you invest for the long term, the average annual return sits between 8 to 10% even through all of these cycles. You can see that with this graph that through all the bear markets and crashes, there's usually some gains afterwards. Looking at this chart of the S&P 500 since 1962, there are going to be years and stretches where you're up 48% to 582%. And yes, you will experience catastrophes from time to time like the 2008 financial crisis and the pandemic CO-19. But the market has delivered consistent wealth to patient investors. The takeaways for this money statistic include number 1, don't stay on the sidelines. If you stay on the sidelines, your cash loses purchasing power to inflation. If you miss just 10 of the best days in the market in the past 30 years, you could erase your gains by 54%. Missing 20 days and 30 days respectively will cost you 73% of your total gains and 83% of your total gains. Takeaway number 2 is that you must be patient and willing to sit through lots of volatility, especially if you're investing for the long term, because it will be unavoidable. If you are emotional, you want to move on to takeaway number 3. And that third takeaway is that index investing is quite powerful. That's when you just try to seek to match market returns. This allows you to stay patient and passive and get those returns without stressing out too much. Stat number 3 today is that the median age of buying a home these days is now 38 years old. And back in 1991, the first-time homebuyer's median age was 28 years old. That means 3 decades later, that number of how old somebody is when they buy their first home is almost 10 years higher. More people are choosing to rent instead of to buy, especially because housing affordability has just gotten out of control in the past decade or so. Couple this with the fact that many people are starting to run their numbers a little bit more closely, and a lot of them are realizing that, well, it might just be better to rent and invest my money instead. Plus, with renting, you get the flexibility of having to be able to leave almost whenever you want, and you're not stuck paying hidden costs of owning a home, like home insurance, maintenance, property taxes, etc. According to Redfin, nationwide, the typical home buyer needs to earn $112,131 per year to afford the median-priced home, which is roughly $25K more than the typical household actually makes. So it's no surprise that affordability is a lot lower these days compared to 10 years ago. And if you are going to buy a house, there are some takeaways that I think you should keep in mind. Number 1, if you want to buy one, you want to stay in it for at least 5 to 10 years. That's the general rule of thumb. This will give you some optionality in terms of refinancing if you ever need it. And you also will mitigate some market risk over time because homes will appreciate over time in more in-demand regions. Takeaway number 2 is don't feel obligated to buy a house. There are many ways to build your wealth, and owning a home is just simply one option. And lastly, make sure you can afford the house itself. Do some research on the hidden costs of maintenance, insurance, property taxes. There's a lot more to owning a home than just the mortgage payment. This next stat I'm really excited about. It's that the amount of net worth required to be in the top 10% of Americans is now 1.06 million. The data sources pretty much all converge together, and they say that to enter the top 10% of American wealth that your net worth needed to hit around 970K back in 2022. So if you adjust that for inflation, that's just around $1.06 million as of 2025. The takeaways you must know for this money stat is that number 1, your net worth is more of a reflection of what you do with your income. You could have a top 10% income, but it doesn't automatically guarantee that you'll be in the top 10% of net worth, because if your financial habits are poor, then you could get stuck not generating any wealth. Number 2, I think the more that you track your net worth, the more it's going to grow. So I used to like checking it once a month, but these days I'm thinking about checking it once every 6 months or maybe even just once a year, because your net worth will fluctuate from time to time just due to your investment portfolio. Number 3, if you aren't where you want to be with your net worth, don't worry just yet. I would say if you're watching this video, you want to just start small, and doing anything is better than nothing. So if that looks like tracking your net worth or perhaps investing $50 or even $100 a month, as long as you're doing something, some action is better than none. And the number 1 jaw-dropping statistic today has to do with your savings rates. And I will give you this crazy example. Pretend that you have 2 people earning $100,000 per year, and both are trying to save their way to $100,000 in net worth as quickly as they can. The first person, investor A, will save 10% of their income every year, but only gets a 1% rate of return. That's hardly even great. His strategy here is to save a lot more than Investor B. So Investor B will save 5% of their income every year, but they will get a 10% rate of return. That's 10 times the return as Investor A. So who do you think gets to $100,000 in savings faster? Well, I will tell you. Investor A reaches 100K in about 9.6 years, and Investor B reaches 100K in about 11.7 years. That's insane to me because Investor B was getting a 10% return, which was 10 times higher than Investor A. So the takeaways here are simply number one, when you're starting from scratch, the amount that you save matters much, much more than the return rate itself. Remember that Investor B is getting a rate of return that's tenfold, but saving half as much, yet Investor A still wins the race. And takeaway number two is that everyone is so focused on returns when in fact, if you could just ramp up your savings rates just a couple percentage points, that's going to make a huge difference in your net worth, especially if you're at the beginning of your financial journey. So I hope those were mind-blowing. Which one of these money stats shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments below. Again, thank you to Chime for sponsoring a portion of this video. If you are interested in their high yield accounts, I will leave a link down below for that as well. Thank you for watching this video. I will see you guys in a future one. I'll even leave one up right here. Perhaps my best money lessons. And until then, peace. Music.